I think sadly now it is. I ended up when I was starting out, I ended up being a crew leader and manager and stuff after working for a couple companies for a matter of weeks because I showed up on time. I had a clean driving record, and I wasn't a jerk. And so if you have just a little bit of motivation, you can really step above everybody else.
James, it is awesome to have you on the podcast. We are four shop teachers, three today, with a goal of trying to get young people excited about the trades. I don't know anybody that better to get people excited about the trades. You've had an awesome career in it. I've had the privilege of knowing you for 5 to 6 years, but can you tell the people that don't know you kind of a little bit about your background, what got you to where you are today, which is a small business owner, a gentleman that runs a nonprofit, all kinds of things.
Yeah, I give you the nickel tour. But yeah, appreciate y'all having me on, and definitely it's been good getting to know you over the past few years and working with your students and stuff through the tech center and everything. So yeah, I got into the trades pretty young, working with my grandfather and stuff. And then when I got into around high school age, I started wanting to make some money and already knew a few skills and stand swinging a hammer, doing landscaping, mason. I mean, anything that somebody would pay me $1 to do, I would go do. Just kind of develop that work ethic of getting, finding people that needed an extra laborer. Because at 15, 16 years old, I didn't really have a strong skill set, couldn't really, take on jobs myself or whatever. And so just jumped in and tried to learn and tried to figure it out. And, I was one of those students that I did well in school, but school was not my thing. And so I knew early on that, going to college and getting an office job and that sort of thing was not going to be um, my forte. Um, that was, of course, late 90s. I graduated high school in 2000. And during that time, it was still the expectation was that you go to college. The trades were kind of still, looked down on some. I definitely had those people that were telling me, "Oh, you're gonna dig ditches for the rest of your life if you don't go to college," or whatever like that. Um, but yet, I didn't go to college, and I have no student loan debt, and I was making better money than anybody in my friend circle. Um, and I've been and like you mentioned in the intro there, I've been able to build on that over the years, and now I run a successful nonprofit. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. Had a big event for that last week, and through that nonprofit, we're swinging hammers and helping people. We're going out and building wheelchair ramps for people that can't afford them. We're fixing their bathrooms to make them handicap accessible. We're repairing leaky roofs. Doing disaster response after hurricanes, tornadoes, stuff like that. And then through my business, mostly kind of focus on the exterior remodeling. So, your roofs, windows, doors, things like that. And have been able to grow a solid company that was able to employ a few people. And then, like I said, be able to give back to those that are coming up through the trades. And, like I said, working with your students and some of the students at a couple of the other local high schools to be able to help get them involved and just say, hey, there's more to it than just swinging a hammer and, you know, the college thing versus the trades thing versus putting them all together. Like there's so many different options that you have and ways you can, approach life coming out of high school that you have options and you have great ways of making a good solid living.
So, so when you said like your grandfather kind of basically got your start into it, was he involved in the trades or was he just somebody that had handyman skills type of thing?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So he actually worked at Dahlgren for most of his career. He was in the Coast Guard, and then when he got out of the Coast Guard, he worked at Dahlgren and was actually a weapons specialist. And he was working on building the next great thing. A lot of the work that he did was actually classified stuff with some of the new technology weapons coming out. But yeah, he did a whole career there at the base. Um, but on the side, he built his own house, was always doing stuff for neighbors and people in the community and things like that. I just always had that skill set. Something that he grew up with and just was trying to pass on. So then when he retired, that's what he started doing. he retired out of NSWC and then started doing the handyman stuff on a regular basis as his job with another guy that retired right around the same time as he did.
Yeah, for those of y'all who don't know Dahlgren, that's a big base. So you moved into the 516 project. You're working on all kinds of projects. You're known in my world because we see what y'all do and seeing cool things like that. But how did you first get that start into like basically a desire to want to help people? Because I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So actually, I got my start in that type of stuff through on the disaster response side of things, really. And so ended up after what was it? Was it Hurricane Katrina? Whichever one was in like 2011 time frame. Um, I've been on a bunch of them now, so I get them all mixed up. But anyway, went on a disaster response down to Louisiana, and we were just we were helping people rebuild their houses. That area got hit so hard after the hurricane, and we went in there and just started, basically going door to door, finding people that needed help and, putting roofs on, redoing drywall, like all kinds of different stuff. And so that's where I really started to get the kind of taste for it through the church that I was going to at the time. This would have, probably a little bit before that, probably, late 2009, 10 time frame. We were doing a little bit of stuff around the community. We'd have, kind of a work day here and there where we'd go out and, there'd be some older folks in the church or, from the community that needed some help. So we'd go, do a little project at their house or whatever. Um, but then in 2015, I was going to a different church. We moved. At that time I was living down in Hanover County, and then I moved back to Fredericksburg. I grew up here in Fredericksburg, and started going to a church, and we were actually sitting in a Sunday school class. It was in August of 2015, and somebody said, well, hey, we got the holidays coming up. It'd be really cool if we could do some sort of a service project as a group, go out and help somebody, whatever. Does anybody have any ideas? And so I was the guy that raised my hand and said, well, hey, I've been doing this type of stuff. If anybody's ever been to a small Baptist church, when you raise your hand, that means you're in charge. It was kind of that forced volunteerism, I guess. But it just, it's kind of one of those things that one thing after another just kept falling together. We ended up doing the first workday that November, so a couple months later, had about 30 volunteers show up. I think we worked on like 9 or 10 houses that day, of doing, some of them were yard cleanups. We put a roof on a house, did just some minor repairs. Like, there's all kinds of different stuff that was going on. And yeah, I got home that evening from the workday, and I told my wife, I was like, "Hey, there's more to this than just a one day thing. Like, this needs to be something that's going on, repetitively." And so from there, I started looking into, okay, I mean, I had never run a nonprofit at that point, obviously. So I started looking into, okay, well, what needs to happen? What do you need to do? And again, just, everything kept falling in place where, by March of 2016, had the nonprofit set up, had everything kind of going, and it's, been, like I said, been off to the races since then.
So I got a question. So you do a full-time remodeling, uh, that's your business, and then you also have a nonprofit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So
That's
I was doing the nonprofit full time for about 7 years. I left the place I was working. So I was working in a family business at the time that I started it, and I left that in 2018 and was doing the nonprofit stuff full time. And then in 2024, I went back into the normal job world, and then started my own company.
Young people, if we're trying to get young people engaged, I just had a student graduate from Germana. Not graduate, he was in Germana. I was teaching a class and he got out and I felt like he needed a little bit more. He said he was like, I need a little bit more confidence before I go onto a job site. But I think he's kind of ready. But, I think sometimes, you need a little bit of actual on the site skills and stuff like that, kind of how to manage that. Do you feel like nonprofits could be the key to a lot of that for like young people? This person's, early 20s. How do you feel like as far as something like that? Like, do you feel like there's an advantage to maybe connecting trade schools to nonprofits?
Yeah, I definitely think that there can be a great connection there. Um, I mean, obviously we've done stuff with your students. We've done a lot of stuff with the Spotsy Vocational Center. They have an internship program, so we've had numerous students come, and they basically work with us for a full week, and some end up working a little bit longer. And it's been good too on both sides, because we've even had students. We had one kid come out. He worked with us for about a day and a half and decided, you know what, swinging a hammer isn't my thing. I need to go study more and figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And so, it can work both ways. In that instance, it was something he figured out. Hey, this is cool and all, but I don't want to be out here, swinging a hammer. I want to go back and find something I can sit in an office desk and do. Um, and so, but yeah, we had kids come out, and the stuff that y'all are able to do in the classroom, of course, is amazing. But when you get out into the field and are able to really put your hands on it and see it in real life and see what actually comes from it, I think that makes a huge impact.
Yeah, yeah.
With you mentioned, which I know a lot of my students would probably relate to the fact that you're in high school, don't really want to be here, not a lot's clicking with me. I don't care about this stuff. If you could go back and tell like your younger self something, like surely there's something beneficial you can learn or be doing or in high school. Would be some advice to a kid that feels that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for, you got to stay in and get your high school diploma for sure. I mean, I know you can get the GED and all that stuff, but just stick it out, get your diploma. You definitely need that. And from the course load side of things, I mean, I know now in high school there's so many more options, of course, even than when I was going through. But make sure you're taking classes that get you the basic life skills. I know, like, I mean, when I went through, I even took, like, there was like a consumer math course that we talked about doing taxes and how to budget and all that sort of stuff. The stuff like that, especially if you think, hey, one, I want to go into the trades, and two, I think I might want to start my own business. You've got to have that stuff. I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons that you see trade businesses fail, is because you've got people that are really good at their trade. They might be a great plumber, might be the best plumber on the planet, but they don't know how to run a budget. And so, 2 years into their business, they've got some brand new F-450 that they can't pay for because they don't have enough projects coming in. They've spent all their money. Whereas if they had just done a little bit of budgeting, they would have had a fine business and been able to support themselves and their family. Able to learn that stuff, learn the basics of life. What does it look like to pay your taxes? What does it look like to, do a budget? What does it look like to make sure you've got groceries and all that stuff? Get those basics, get all those skills. Because no matter what you do, whether you're swinging a hammer, going to college, sitting in the office, out in the field, you've got to have that stuff.
Amen to that.
Yeah, that's good stuff. My question is, like, would you recommend like starting a nonprofit and how did you get there, I guess? Just you seen a need and you figured you would just fill that gap and that was what you did?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I literally just saw that there was a need and said, okay, how do I fill that need? Um, I've always been that kind of person, like, and I think that's one of the reasons that I'm terrible at working for other people. It's because I end up, whatever my job description is, I end up doing way more and like trying to take over other people's jobs. I'm like, yeah, you're not doing that the way it needs to be done. Let me do that. Um, so yeah, I saw a need and I said, okay, I've got the skill set, I've got the connections, I can pull people together to make this happen. Um, and so, yeah, it's just really just jumping in there. I wouldn't say that I mean, you don't necessarily need to start a nonprofit or even start a business or whatever. You can do this type of stuff just out of the goodness of your heart if you want to go out and help people, or being able to do it on the side of things of as far as making a living. So it just really depends on what you want to get out of it for your life.
Yeah, so not to switch gears too much, but you own your company. It's Fred Exteriors, is that correct? Okay, so Fred Exteriors. One thing is I keep on hearing. I was at actually something the The Virginia Builders Association gave us a grant, which was super cool. And the head of the National Builders Association got up there and was just talking about remodeling is it. Like, it's the name of the game right now, because what's happening is there's not a lot of people that can afford a new house, so they have to remodel their current house, right? It's the same thing like when the economy takes a hit, people have to hang on to their cars for longer, everything like that. So right now, he was saying basically the biggest boom that we're going to see is in this remodeling industry. A lot of what we end up talking about is sometimes new construction. If you were like, did you basically see a need in the area and say, hey, there's a lot of potential, that's why I want to get involved? What brought about the start of Fred Exteriors?
Yeah, so it originally started with the idea of more doing like the marketing and lead generation side of things. I was working for another company as the sales manager and doing remodels and stuff, exterior remodels mostly. And there was a struggle between finding good solid leads and finding the leads that were just, we were chasing our tails
Tire
with my
kickers.
sales reps. And so my original plan was that I was going to start this as basically like literally as a marketing company to be able to generate those solid leads, kind of vet the leads, and then bring them into that business. Then, things happened. I ended up, exiting that business. And so I kind of just jumped right into saying, okay, well, now I need to turn this into a full-on company. And, so I went and took the test, got my contractor's license, got the insurance, all that stuff. And said, okay, kind of like I was talking about before. I said, okay, here's a need, here's the skill set I have. How do I fill it and make it happen? And so that's really where this company came from. It was almost, I guess, a little bit by accident, really.
Yeah, that's cool. So basically, you focus on, you said windows, siding, trim, exterior remodeling.
Yeah, the
And
exterior stuff. Yeah, windows, doors, roofing, we do repairs, and replacement, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I'm out of curiosity, just with the background of disaster relief. Is there a reason why you picked going that route as opposed to like Ken does restoration?
As far as doing the exteriors,
Yeah, as opposed to like with your
yeah,
background of 516, just disaster relief. But
yeah, it was stuff that I knew, and I already had crews and stuff that I could work with to accomplish the work. So it just made sense. I'm sure as I progress and the company grows, we might add in some other things. But for getting started, I guess it was the path of least resistance, because I knew those product lines. I know roofing, I know windows, I know doors, the exterior repairs. That's kind of where my skill set is the best. And so it just made sense to track that way.
gotcha.
What's your goal for your business? Like, where do you want to be in 5 years?
Hopefully sitting on a beach or mountains somewhere. Um, no, I think this was designed to, I'm trying to design it and set it up in a way that it can, it can not necessarily become self-sufficient, but at least get to a point where I've got a team built up to where, I can kind of be in that oversight sort of position and kind of vision casting position, and then, be able to focus on some other things.
Very cool. Might have to work on your not wanting to like have your fingers in everything
Yeah.
characteristic.
Well, and one of the great things with that is that I've always been good at finding great people to surround myself with, and that's what it's all about. When you can build up a team and train them and get people that will, as a business owner, you're never going to find anybody that has the same passion that you have for your company, because it's your baby. But you're going to find people that believe in what you're doing and will come alongside and push it forward. And so that's really where I want to get.
So
Very
what
cool.
are skills that you're looking for people? Like if we're talking to young people, just say, hey, look, James is a guy that owns an exterior remodeling company. What are things that you would look for that we could tell students, hey, this is important to people in the community that own businesses?
Yeah. I think sadly now it's so easy to rise above every other person out there.
Yeah.
Show up on time. Do what you say you're going to do. It's these simple things that I think have just gotten so lost in the workplace. But I mean, I ended up when I was starting out, I ended up being a crew leader and manager and stuff after working for a couple companies for, a matter of weeks because I showed up on time. I had a clean driving record and, I wasn't a jerk to people. And then, after a couple weeks, they're like, okay, you're the crew leader now because the crew leader stopped showing up or he showed up drunk or he did whatever. And so if you have just a little bit of motivation, you can really step above everybody else. But yeah, the showing up on time, doing what you say you're going to do, having a willingness to learn. Don't come in and be a know-it-all. Realize that I mean, all of us even sitting here, I mean, y'all teach these classes and you still have stuff that you don't know and you need to learn. So it's having that learning mentality of I'm always learning, always wanting to see how I can do better and just being there for the people around you. If you show up, you be there for the people around you, you're going to be valuable to your employer.
Yeah, 100%. Sometimes I get nervous. I'm like, honestly, should we be teaching much of construction with this? Should we just be teaching like you said, not being a
Soft skills.
know-it-all,
Yeah.
soft skills, all those things? And you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, say if you can teach 50-50, you're probably great. Like, okay, here's how you swing a hammer and cut a board, and here's how to show up on time and set an alarm clock.
Yeah, yeah.
And just be a good person.
And realize, one of and this is a conversation I've had with my kids and I've had with some of the students that have come through, like, realize that the decisions you make affect your life and those around you. If you want to go out and party and have a great time, okay. But remember, the consequences can come from that. So if you go out and party and have a great time and you get arrested, you're going to lose your job. And then you're going to struggle finding another one because they're going to pull your record and say, oh, this guy's got X, Y, and Z on his record. So we don't want him around our company. So it's really paying attention to what's going on all the time in your life and knowing and just keeping it all together. You can go out and have fun, but just be smart about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Solid
100%.
advice.
What do you guys want to add?
I don't know. I don't know. That's pretty cool. Business and a
Do you think
charitable
do you think
company.
we should be adding you said talk about finances and stuff like that? How do you think that should be taught if we're most of all of us are running like a carpentry style uh building trades? What do you think we should be implementing into our classrooms as far as on the finance end or the business end as far as teaching?
Yeah. No, I would say with that, I mean, you know, jumping into, budgeting jobs and stuff and like, okay, um, like on the carpentry side, okay, we've figured out what size deck we're going to build or, whatever it is that you're framing or whatever. And be able to break down, okay, if we're building this 10 by 20 deck, what do we need to account for our materials? What do we need to account for our labor? What do we need to account for our overhead expenses? We've got to have insurance and, gas for the trucks and all that sort of stuff and start diving into that stuff early on. Because if guys can come out of I say guys, girls can come out of y'all's programs, already having that, at least that base. I mean, I know it's not going to have everything in there, but at least having some of that base knowledge of, okay, it's more than just buy a board, put a board in. There's all these other things that go into it to make that full budget, to make sure you've got, your overhead covered, make sure you've got your profit margin covered. Um, and that's a big thing too. Profit's not the devil. We've got to have profit in order to have a successful business and in order to grow the business and employ people and all these sort of things. That's got to be factored in there.
I feel like in the construction industry, that's like taboo. Like I had a general contracting license and did remodeling for years, and it's like people try to beat you down on price because like our labor rates haven't changed in the last 25, 30 years, but materials has changed drastically. And when you try to have that conversation, I think a lot of it is you just got to be educated and educate your customers to get the right type of thinking. Because with like HGTV, everyone sees all this stuff and they want all this beautiful stuff, but they don't realize what it actually takes to create that.
Yeah.
Makes it challenging.
Yeah. I've banned HGTV in my house. My wife's like, Chip and Joanna did blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, Chip and Joanna had a budget of $10 million and 40 people that were never on that camera doing all that work.
Yeah. Unless they want to sponsor our podcast, and then honestly, we love them.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. But stuff like that, I mean, and even stuff like that, I mean, it is overall, I think it is good for the industry. Like all those shows where you see people flipping houses and those different things, because it starts to get the wheels turning in people's minds that don't have the construction background. And yes, they skip over a lot of the pieces, you know. I know there's an episode a while back where they took out, a wall, put in this huge laminate beam and everything. And so my wife gets the idea, oh, hey, we could take out this wall and do just like that. I was like, right, honey, but that would require a 30-foot laminate beam. That beam alone would be like $7,000. Like, no, we're not, but it gets the conversation going, gets people thinking about it. And then hopefully, like I said, even the younger folks that are coming up see some of that stuff and they get excited about it, realize, just like we're talking about here, there's more than just swinging the hammer. You could be a daggone TV star by knowing these skills and being able to go in and remodel a house.
Noah wants to be a YouTube teacher.
No, I don't. The what's it called? I do think the one advantage is if you're older, obviously you probably don't want to be fixing up your house. But if you're young, if you're like 20 and you have these skills, that's where you can really implement it and change your life, even if you're just doing it yourself. Like if you take our classes for that, then you could definitely benefit and get some ideas from HGTV or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy a fixer upper for a good price, put a little bit of sweat equity into it, and then a couple years down the road, turn around and you've got automatic equity, no matter what the market does, because you've taken that house and made it into a better situation.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and appreciate all the work you're doing in your neck of the woods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you guys come into my classroom, you talk
That's
to my
awesome.
students, all kinds of stuff. And I'll say this, everyone says they're going to come into the classroom, no one ever does. I mean, it's rare. It really
And
is.
James, I will tell you that when that happens, I got our buddies Travis and Joe. They come in and they do stuff, and even if I can just call them when I'm like, dude, I'm in over my head. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
He does it every day.
Maybe, but it's like my point is, it means more to someone like Noah than you probably ever will realize. So
Yeah, I actually, what's it called? I typed in, because every time we do a podcast, I type in the name or like 516 or something like that, just so I see if I have any pictures. And I have some pictures, which I'll probably post when we do this on YouTube or whatever, or online, of you with the students and like your truck and stuff like that.
it's awesome.
You came with a truck and trailer, and the students were like all talking about that. It's cool to hype students up on like cool stuff that you can have. And so
That was when I just bought that new dually too. So I had that brand new F-350 when I rolled in there.
yeah, that was sweet. So, all right. So, last final question. We get hit by a bus, all of us. You come into our classrooms, you have to cover for the day. What are you teaching the young people if you have to sub?
Yeah, you're not gonna catch me in the classroom. I'm gonna find somebody I know and be like, hey, Noah needs a sub. I joke all the time, like I love my kids, but other people's kids drive me nuts.
That's fair.
No, I
That's the
think
best response we've ever had.
But you're
oh
going to the
man,
principal's office.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm sending everybody to the principal's office, and it'd be like that. What's that skit with AA Ron and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
no, man, I think the thing that the thing that I would try to impart is definitely, nothing even to do with the hammers and the nails and all that stuff. It's really just like we were talking about, being a solid person, living by your word. When you tell somebody you're gonna do it, you do it. When you tell somebody you're gonna show up at 9 o'clock, you show up at 8:50, and just do right by yourself, and therefore you're doing right and serving the people that you're there to serve.
Nice. I love it.